The didactic exchange requires us to repeat ourselves about 19 times to optimize how much somebody will hear and understand of what we've said. Seems to explain a lot of barriers in communication. And so you might say there's one or two ways to circumnavigate, to get around the didactic exchange. And it's being, I might say, asking questions. And if the person talking to you is not asking you questions, you could ask yourself questions of what they say, if we choose to be curious. If you choose to be curious, you can ask yourself questions of what somebody is trying to say. By doing so, even a question somebody asks you directly. Chris Voss talks about it at length. We covered it in class today about how most people do not ask the intended question. So what that means is even when somebody asks us questions, we should be asking ourselves questions of what the question they asked us. I didn't quite word that correctly. When somebody asks us a question, often is not the intended question, and we could choose to ask ourselves questions of the intended question from our counterpart, if we choose to be curious. Because we ask bad questions. Einstein was famous for saying something like he would take 55 minutes to, if he had an hour to live, he would take 55 minutes to ask the right question. Something like that. And so, and as important as 2,000 years ago, Socrates was sentenced to death for asking questions and realizing how important questions were. However, Socrates didn't have the brain science to explain how dangerous questions are. Comments, as in elicitation of a response, feels like somebody requires to be trained to practice elicitation. The simpler method is to use labels. Asking labels to label whatever something looks, sounds, seems, feels like. Didactic exchange, we could just save so much time, energy, resources by asking questions to help our counterpart hear. And if we practice curiosity to ask questions of questions, we could save ourselves time, energy, resources by helping us ourselves here, like a learning tool, to help ourselves hear what the other person is saying, could save so much time, energy, resources.